Ayo, what up, dorks?
What's up, dorks?
What's up, dorks? My name's Dijon Mustard, and this is...
I'm Carsosaurus Rex.
and today, we're going to be talking about accountability.
Accountability?
Accountability.
Yes, sir.
And opening up to our homie Christians, bruh.
Our homeboy peeps.
Our homeboy peeps. Thanks for joining us on the Open Door Youth Podcast. Again, at Dijon Mustard
and Carsosaurus Rex.
Let's get into the episode.
Roll the intro.
Following up that absolutely insane intro, welcome back to the Open Door Youth Podcast. So for today, like we talked about, we're going to be going into opening up accountability, talking to fellow homie peep Christians, and diving into what that means. I think for an overall main point, spiritual battles are real. Truly, God never designed us to fight them alone. We're called to confess, encourage, and strengthen each other through accountability and spiritual friendship. With that being said, we're going to read the main text for the day. I feel like I'm doing a sermon. I'm like, here's our main text for the day. I can't see it. The microphone's in the way. It's awkward. Okay. It is Galatians 6, verses 1 through 2. It says, Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation. Share each other's burdens, and in this way, obey the law of Christ. So I think that, first off, pulls us into our first point, which is we are called to carry each other's burdens.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
It is.
Honestly, like when you think about it, like carrying each other's burdens, like a lot of times we have our own burdens that like we get tired of carrying.
Right.
That like you want me to carry someone else's burdens,
Mm-hmm.
but when you think about it, it's like we carry each other's.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I have all my burdens,
Mm-hmm.
pour all your burdens onto me, but then I don't do it for you, and then now I'm carrying all. It's one of those things that it's
Right.
you reciprocate.
Right.
And that's why you have to find somebody that you really trust
Mhm.
and can be really close with and say like, hey, like I'm really, going through something right now. I'm really struggling with this.
Right.
Can I share this with you? And, can you pray for me? And
Right.
and then also, sometimes it's hard to do it in the moment, but also like try and offer it up. We're like, hey, like, what are you struggling with?
Right.
Don't just like pour out, like dump a bunch of stuff and then just be like, oh, all right, I feel better. Thanks. Bye. Like it's like don't pour out
Don't make it
all of those.
one-sided.
Exactly. Don't pour out all of those burdens
Right.
and then say, oh yeah, I feel like light and free now. I feel
Mhm.
good. All right, see ya.
Yeah. Right. I
it-
think to a fair point, you and I do this to an extent. I don't believe that we are 100% accountability partners where we share everything, but I think we do share enough that we can be praying for each other in certain circumstances that we're in. Like I shared with you today about the whole situation with traveling and just that complication, what that looks like, right? And that's something I'm struggling with, and that's something that is a challenge that I'm trying to get through. So I'm letting you know that so that you know, and you can be like, hey, how'd the situation go, right? And then on my part, I do need to make sure that I'm there for you for whatever you have. My Bible's about to fall on my lap. But whatever you have, right, I need to be there for that too. And the other thing is, right, with accountability, one of the hardest things to, I think about is if I'm telling you something really, really near and dear to my heart, I'm telling you with full confidence, right? That you're not going to take it and be like, oh, I can't believe he does that, or I can't believe he did that, right? Because it's not, and that's what, try to check the scripture again, right? Gently and humbly help that person back up. So rather than being like, oh, I can't believe they do that, right? You handle it with grace, and you handle it with love, and without judgment.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be really tough. And that's why, going back, you got to find somebody that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go to in this instance, we'll go back and say, like, if I'm the person that's being trusted, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm struggling with this and stuff like that, like, I have to remember that okay, like this person's going through something, it's a real struggle to them. It might not be a struggle for me, but it is for them. And I need to be here to help them through it
Mhm,
and not judge them because, they have sinned, I have sinned.
mhm,
We might just be doing it in different ways. And um, there should be some joy in it of
mhm.
like, you have come to confess your sins to me, and stuff like that, so that I can help you
Right,
like through this. That like there's joy in like you hate to see them battling those things,
right.
but also there's a joy of you have come to me to talk about this. We can pray about it. I can be here for you. I can help you through it. And, there's, freedom, in you doing this. And then we can, get back onto the right track. Um, which is also what we're there for. We're there to speak life and truth to them, and that's where you have to be in that fine line of like still telling them the truth, um, but also still being gentle about
Right,
it too. Um, and then the other danger that we run into in the second part of the scripture, it says, "And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself."
right,
That we have to also guard our hearts at
right.
the same time. That if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm really dealing with this," um, they might say like, "Hey, like, I'm not sure how to word it exactly, but like, if they come to you and they tell you, "Hey, I'm battling with
Mm.
this," and then they try to get you involved in doing it to make
Right,
themselves feel better,
right.
that's where you kind of have to like guard your own heart kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah, right. That's very, very true. That's mhm.
Mhm,
Mhm. I
yeah.
can think of times for myself, just being honest, and moments where my relationship with God might not have been where certainly not where it is now. Um, and there would be moments where people would come to me, right, and be like, "Hey, I need help with this," or "Can you walk through this with me?" Um, and I end up falling into the same crap that they were in the middle of. And then so oftentimes, and here's the funny part, I would see them walk out the other side like triumphant, and then I'm now in what they were in, which is just kind of funny. But yeah, definitely, definitely guard your heart and make sure um, just pay attention, because
Mhm,
oftentimes when we get too comfortable, we start to make mistakes.
yeah. And to that as well as that, like you said, in that moment, now you're at a point where they were struggling. Now you're struggling with the same thing,
Right,
and you're both like in that, tough spot in that pin. Now
right,
they might be thinking, oh, well, then I guess it was okay that I was doing it,
right.
you know,
True.
because like so it could start like validating
Right.
the sin that they were doing, or like people be like, "Oh, well, they struggle with this too,"
Mhm.
kinda like going on the defense kinda thing.
Right,
So, that's where it's hard to
right,
find that mix of, like, you wanna be gentle and humble,
right.
but you also wanna be like, "Hey, there's some correction that needs to happen
Mhm.
because you don't wanna fall into the same thing."
Right,
And then now you're both in that in
right.
that really
And you're in
bad
it together,
spot.
and then you
Yeah.
don't have an accountability partner anymore, and you have to find a new one.
Exactly. And now it's you're in it together, but now in a different form.
Right.
So, when people come to you and they tell you about these hard things that they're going through, there's like that freedom that I told you about. There's also a lot of healing that
Mhm.
comes with it.
Right,
And with that healing, like we start to um it's almost like a thing you can feel in your heart,
right.
and actually with that, confession and the healing and stuff like that, that brings up James 5:16, if
Mhm.
you don't mind reading that.
Right. It says, "Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results."
Mm,
Yeah.
love that.
All right. Bro, we said it last week or whatever. No, 2 weeks ago. James is just a crazy book. It's so good.
It's so
James is
good.
just a good book. But I think the primary point here in this scripture is God's design for healing involves um, confession, right? Not just to God, but to each other, right? If I'm going through something, I'm gonna confess that to you, not and like not as like a Catholic priest confession, but as
Right.
like a, hey man, I'm really struggling in this area. Can you pray for me? Be with me here. Check up on me, right? And then I will begin to see healing in that area. As also, I know that a person is has my back. I also know that for myself, having an accountability partner is important, because I am a person who enjoys, not enjoys, and not must either. I'm a person who likes to ensure that people are pleased.
Mhm.
And so I'm not too bad at it, but I'm also not a person who's like, I don't care what you think, right? I do. So for you, right, if I tell you something that I'm struggling with, I expect you to then ask me. Therefore, I want to be further along so that when you ask me, I know that I've at least made steps, right? I've made
Right.
strides to get better. So I know by you talking about it or you knowing about it, I'm gonna heal quicker because I'm gonna kind of force myself to, as well. I'm gonna force myself to walk through it faster and to come out the other side quicker.
Right. Absolutely. And, with that, I I like this point that, like, we don't just confess it to God, but
Mhm,
we confess it to other people.
mhm,
Because the whole I don't know how to say this other than I'm not belittling what God's able to do
mhm,
when I say this, but um, we confess it to God,
mhm.
but the reason that we confess it to other people is so that we don't isolate ourselves.
Right.
Um,
Very
because
right.
what does Satan want us to do? He wants to isolate us.
Right.
And I mean, there's a lot of power in our relationship just between us and Christ,
Mhm.
but there's also he puts a huge significance on with other people too,
Right.
the being the church and being Christians and
Mhm.
being with other people and stuff like that. And part of that is that we also need those relationships
Mhm.
around us, so that we don't isolate our issues and
Right.
then struggle with it alone and feel like we're just like you know pretty much, like, almost dying inside.
Right.
I don't know how else to explain it other than that,
Right.
that there's almost just like a internal, almost deterioration
Mhm.
that happens when we isolate ourselves,
Right.
and I know that very well,
Mhm.
because I'm really bad about that. I'm
Right.
I'm really bad about taking my issues and feelings and stuff like that and just
Mhm.
internalizing it and leaving it there and just saying, and like this isn't somebody else's problem, like
Yeah.
other people don't need to be worrying about this. Like I'm here
Yeah.
for other people. I'll deal with it on my own.
Right. I definitely used to do that. Um to a large extent. I'm a big happy person all the time, it's who I am, and so when there is something that's slightly off or unhappy or, I don't know, unconventionally me, I guess, I'd suppress it, and I did this with Bella for a long time too, where I would suppress it and push it, down so that she didn't have to deal with it because she was already stressed at work, she was busy with this or she had this, so I would push it down, and I will say, being married is an incredible accountability thing. Not just because you live together, but because you truly know all the pieces about each other. Just like
Mhm.
having a boyfriend or a girlfriend is a good accountability thing if you have the right boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah, you gotta make sure you got the right
That is
one.
right. Which we'll
Yeah.
we'll click on that later. Um, but the other I think moving on um confession as a whole. Like if I go to Bella, right? Let's go back to this when Belle and I were dating, I saw it as weakness to confess a problem that I was having.
Mhm.
Because I wanted her to see me strong. I wanted her to see me as a Christian man who was worthy, of her and of her devotion further on, and for marriage and things like that. I wanted to ensure that she knew that, right? But suppressing, like I said, doesn't do any good except for push you down and her to have a false ideology of who you are, right? So
Mhm.
the more you confess, the more you build a relationship too. And so it's not weakness, even when it feels like it. It's not because this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do. The world might deem it as weakness to show, hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, I'm having a problem with this. But the Bible basically, I mean, just very visually says, this is not a weakness. This is what you're supposed to do. Go to other people and expect them to help you through it. Um, I don't know. If Jesus tells us to do it, then I'm gonna do it. So just saying.
Yeah.
Saying. Um, and this other piece where I was talking about relationships, um, real strength. So strength and accountability, strengthen yourself, strengthen your identity, like we talked about last week, comes from real brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call that. Brotherhood's a very churchy word, but comes from real friendships and real relationships. Just like my marriage, right? Real strength comes from opening up in my marriage, opening up to my girlfriend or my boyfriend, right? Opening up to these people who can help me through it. So leads us to Ecclesiastes 4 9 through 10. You want to hit that for me?
Yeah, for sure. Um, so Ecclesiastes 4 9 through 10. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help, but someone who falls alone is in real trouble.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge. Um, Absolutely huge. I don't want to fall alone. I don't want to fall alone.
Hmm.
I'd rather fall with somebody else. Well, not make them fall, but fall so that somebody can pick me up. When I see this, I think of when Peter stepped out of the boat. Right, he
Mm,
was stepping out in faith, but he stumbled and he felt he had doubt. Right, this is something that we can communicate. Hey, I'm having a doubt in my faith in Christ. Right, it's fine. Um, it's a fine thing to feel. There's nothing wrong with that. Right, we're here to help you through that. But Peter began to drown essentially,
yeah.
and Jesus was right there, and not only because he was Jesus was it cool, but because there was another person, right? There was an accountability partner to say,
Hmm.
"Hey, no, you've got this. I know where your faith actually lies. Get up here, because we're gonna walk together." So that's another thing is Jesus was able to pull him out of that water because there were two people rather than one. Otherwise, he would have just died.
Yeah.
He would have died. He would have drowned.
Most likely. Yeah. All of this, in general always reminds me of Acts chapter 2.
Right.
And this is one that I preach on so much that, like, whenever we talk about the church
Mhm.
and stuff like that, I always go straight to this scripture,
Yeah.
because I feel like it just gives us the greatest example of what the church should be.
Right.
Um, this is in Acts 2. It's 42 through, I think, like 47. Um, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts,
Mm.
praising God and enjoying favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved.
Wow.
So, even though it's a little bit different from what we're talking about, I think
Mhm.
it kind of hits the main point that as followers of Christ, being in community with one another
Mhm.
is crucial.
Absolutely.
That, I know this hits on different points of things, but it's still that overall theme that, like, we do life together.
Right.
There is no, doing stuff alone, and that, our strength and our brotherhood
Mhm.
and our unity
Right.
all, comes from, like, the church,
Right.
believers being together. And, I mean, there might be times that you're like, "Hey, I trust this person more than another."
Mhm.
Like, that's not a wrong thing,
No.
you know, um, but that, like, it's just important in the first place that we're in that community,
Mhm.
finding those people that, like,
Right.
"Hey, like, you know, I want to do life with you,
Right.
I want you to help me through life, and I wanna
Mhm.
help you through life," and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, it's and that's has to do with the isolation point you brought up yet or yesterday earlier, which is isolation is dangerous when you're going through a spiritual
Mhm.
trouble or whatever. I think we lose the value of the word church. Um, We say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the church to," or "I'm going to church," or I don't know, however you wanna use that word. I say all the time, I work here, so I'm here, all the time, and I'm like, "I'm gonna go to the church," right? No, kind of, not really,
Yeah,
right? Because the true definition of church is the body of believers that you're centered around, right?
right.
The people that the community that you have. It's less of the building that you're in, and so that's just important to remember
Mhm.
that being a part of your church is the opposite of isolation. And so it so clearly says that isolation is dangerous during spiritual warfare or a spiritual situation that you're in. And so stay away from that. Um,
Yeah. It If you don't mind, I'm
mhm,
more on the isolation thing. I don't know, that this is one of those things that hits really hard for me
mhm.
just because, like, it's something that I've really struggled with, and it's a little ironic that I'm opening up about this on in the
On a
podcast.
podcast about
Yeah,
accountability and opening
about
up.
accountability, yeah. But with isolation, I mean, I don't know how to describe the feeling of it other than what I said earlier, but that, like, it can be a really, really dark place to
Right,
be in. I guess giving a little forward, I might get into a little bit more tougher,
right,
things,
please.
so if you need to skip ahead.
Please.
But, I mean, if I can just be completely, transparent, I mean, like, there's been times that I've really gone through some difficult stuff,
Mhm,
some really severe anxiety, depression, stuff like that, and part of the point of, I would say just the devil hitting you with that kinda stuff and,
mhm.
like, putting those burdens on you is to isolate you.
Right.
Um, and there's times where I'll sit there and I'm like, I know this person would be here for me if I called them.
Mhm,
I know this person would be here for me if I called them. But in my mind, I'm being told these lies that they don't care. They're
mhm.
too busy for you right now.
Right.
And like, there's just been times that I'll go and I've just sat on my floor
Mhm.
and just like hit my head against my bed and
Right.
just sat there and just like felt hollow.
Mhm.
And that isolation in that moment is
Mhm.
just, like, so dark and heavy
Right.
that, like, it'll take you to places mentally that you've never been before and you
Mhm.
don't ever wanna be. Um, and, sometimes I'll just sit there and I'll be to a point where I just sit and cry,
Right.
and just be like, "Alright, well, hopefully I just feel better after, and I'll go to bed and wake
Right.
up and move on tomorrow."
Yeah.
Or there's times that, I'll sit there and I will quite literally feel like a void of no emotion.
Right.
Like, I literally can't feel anything,
Mhm.
which is
I
scary.
believe that.
Um, so even when you're in those times, I'm preaching to myself right now, that, like,
Mhm.
even if you're facing those times where you are either depressed or anxious or you know those lies are being told you of like nobody cares,
Mhm.
like nobody wants to hear about your stuff, like
Right.
that's oh, I can do it on my own, I just need to suffer through it real quick and move on and I'll just be my happy self again. Is that like reach out to somebody,
Right.
because there is somebody that cares. Call them, text them, whatever you need to do, um because even though you don't think it's gonna make you feel better,
Mhm.
it absolutely will.
Right.
There's so much freedom in, like we said before about, calling or reaching out to somebody and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
like, I need you," kinda
Yeah.
thing, which takes a lot of, like,
Right.
humility of being like, "I'm not as strong as I thought I was,
Mhm.
and I need somebody."
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to go through.
Right. Well, I think,
Yeah.
that so greatly puts us into our next point because, um, while it is important to open up, to people, and it's important not to isolate, be very, very actually, I'm gonna rewind for a second.
Okay.
Um, if so I'm not gonna speak for Carson, but, for any of our youth that are watching, um, the podcast right now, um, Sunday, Wednesday, Tuesday, I don't care. Come grab my phone number and call me at 2 a.m. if you're struggling with something. Call me at I don't care. I don't care. Truly. Um, we as leaders are here for you accountability wise and opening up wise. Um, truly text me, call me whenever. Come get my phone number. I know that I haven't given it out publicly. I certainly won't do it on the podcast. I get calls from random
Yeah.
spam callers. Um, but truly call me if you need anything at any time. Just come grab my number. It's totally cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll offer it up too. I
yeah,
mean, honestly, exactly what you said. The same goes for me.
yeah,
I'm more than happy to give out,
yeah.
my number if somebody needs, help and stuff like that. And actually, you do have your phone number and Bella's phone number on a slide on the computer.
I
So
do. I just
yeah,
haven't
she
put
did.
it up
Oh,
yet.
you
I
haven't?
haven't put it
Okay.
up yet.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to
But yeah,
in a couple weeks from now.
so yeah, I mean
But yeah.
that's literally part of the reason why we're here. It's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
we're
No.
we're not
Right.
just here just to kind of like chill and then just like
Hmm.
talk to you and then like okay, have a good week and
Yeah.
I'll see you next Sunday. Don't talk to me between now and then.
Exactly.
It's
No,
like
talk
we're
to me Monday, Tuesday,
right.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, those days that
Yeah.
you don't see us, right? Call us, talk to us, text us, whatever you need. Um, truly that is what we're here to do. And I think
Mhm.
all of your leaders would say that. Some of your leaders might say, "Don't call me at 3 a.m." I'm not sure. But anyway, I
Yeah.
think I think all of your leaders are there for you. Even youth at different churches,
Mhm.
your leaders are also there for you. That's why they're here, is to be is to be a leader for you
Right.
and to walk you through challenging situations.
It's not about just being a leader from
Mhm.
6 to 8.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'm not just your leader from
Mhm.
6 to 8 p.m. on a Sunday
Mhm.
night and
Right.
then 6:30 to 7:30 on a Wednesday.
Right.
Like I am one of your leaders and like
Mhm.
I'm somebody who's here for you 24/7.
Right.
And like our influence goes beyond
Yeah.
the borders of just the building that we meet in.
Indeed.
So
Indeed. So yeah, like we said, please reach out if you
yeah,
need anything.
100%.
Truly don't care what it is. We probably have already heard it before. We probably have already gone through it ourselves before.
Mhm.
So there's nothing that as big as you can think of the concept, we've probably at least seen it. We've been through it, or we've been accountability for somebody else who's been through that. So
And
don't feel like it's too much.
we're not naive
Right.
to real struggles that are going
Right.
on and problems and stuff like that is yeah.
Right.
We've either yeah, like you said, we've either been through it,
Hmm.
we've seen it,
Hmm.
or we know
Or
about
we've
it.
certainly heard about it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that brings us in perfectly into our next point now of be wise to who you open up to. Us as leaders, good options. Um, good options. Um, just be very, 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 very careful who you open up to. I'm gonna read Proverbs 27:17, literally one of the shortest verses on the planet. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. Um, I think ultimately our first piece of guidance, our first step, have we analyzed, have we seen whether they're a Christian or not?
Mm,
Don't go find an accountability partner who ain't a Christian. You're gonna have some horrible advice, and some worldly advice that you just don't want. Um, first off, find somebody who's a Christian. I certainly don't recommend finding an accountability person who's not a Christian.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I mean like yeah, that's true. I would say like as an accountability partner, yeah, going to somebody who's outside the faith isn't the best
Hmm.
option,
Right.
Not saying that you shouldn't like connect with people,
Right.
of course, right?
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
part of what we do is share the gospel with people who aren't
Yeah.
followers and stuff. But when it comes to your spiritual growth,
Hmm.
you have to choose wisely who you talk to
Right.
because of confidentiality
Hmm.
and um if you talk to somebody who's not a Christian, they're probably not going to understand,
Right.
because like if somebody doesn't follow Christ, then they probably don't well then they're not going to understand the spiritual life that we have in the relationship with Jesus and stuff like that. So they're going to be kind of outside of a certain understanding
Hmm.
that needs to be had by the person you talk to.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, it's leaders are always a good option,
Hmm.
stuff like that. But it really becomes a lot more complicated when you're talking about like your peers and stuff like that. That's when you have to be a lot more careful.
Right.
And I mean, it's the same thing for me. Is that like I'm very trusting of people that are older than me,
Hmm.
and have more knowledge and experience, wisdom, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But in general, across the board, I'm always very, very cautious and particular about what details I give to people
Right.
and like what like a certain amount of trust.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there pretty much everybody that I run into, I automatically give a certain level of trust.
Mhm.
And it's like, if you can keep that trust, then
Mhm.
great. I'll start giving you more and we'll,
Right.
progressively build up from there. Um, but if you break it,
Yeah.
don't expect me to give you as much, or we're gonna have to take a step back
Mhm.
before we move our way back up. Because
Right.
people do dumb stuff. People make
Mhm.
mistakes and
Right.
stuff like that. So you break my trust. I'm not gonna, if you break my trust one time, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna be like, all right, you're done, goodbye, whatever.
Right.
I'm willing. You have to be willing to forgive and say,
Yep.
okay,
Have
well,
grace.
yeah, have grace. We're gonna take a step back,
Mhm.
but we can build our way back up.
Yep.
There can be restoration, there can be
Absolutely.
improvement.
Right.
So yeah, that's when you just gotta be really careful when it comes to your peers,
Mhm.
because you don't know where they're at in their faith.
Mhm.
You don't know their maturity
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So you gotta be very careful about
Right.
who.
Right. Um, I think now, um, with being with finding a person, um, to be to hold you accountable, right? So that you can share with them. We also need to be focused on being that person, for others as well. Um, because like we talked about in the beginning, accountability is not one-sided. It is not, I come tell you all my problems and I expect you to carry the burden of those without me carrying yours, without us carrying each other's burdens, which is the first point. So I think, number one, are you approachable? Are you filled with grace? Are you giving people grace during these things? Are you trustworthy? Are you going to go shoot it off to other people and be like, bro, guess what I heard that Carson's doing, or what Carson's struggling with, or Carsosaurus Rex over here is dealing with?
Yeah.
um, right? We want to make sure that we're those things, um, without a doubt. Um, yeah, that's important. We need to be able to be those people for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another, kind of thing, like a
Mhm.
struggle, is that um when you're picking somebody, um like you said, you have to be somebody that's full of grace, and you have to work on your own maturity,
Right.
because you're gonna break that trust with somebody.
Mhm.
And if you're sitting there and you're just like, well, why doesn't anybody ever come to me about their problems? Like, do people not trust me?
Mhm. Do a
But
heart
then
check.
but then yeah, yeah, look back at yourself and
Right.
be like, okay, well, are you being kind? Are you being
Mhm.
loving? Like, when people have come to you, have you been gracious, or have you been, judgmental?
Mhm.
Have you been helpful and kind and
Right.
keeping stuff in confidence, or are you going about and are you gossiping to
Right.
other people?
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
how can you can't expect somebody to give you that trust
Yeah.
if you're gonna go and essentially just blab about it to other people, of like, oh my gosh, can you believe they're dealing with it? Can you believe that they're going through this? It's like,
Right.
that's not information that's yours to give.
Right.
Like, if that person wants to go and talk to,
Mhm.
somebody else about it, then,
Mhm.
that is what it is. Um, but that, honestly, that whole entire thing about like confessing certain things are going
Mhm.
on gets extremely more complicated once you are on staff at a church,
Right.
or you're a more like public
Right.
figure,
That's very true. I
Yeah.
say I'll go ahead and just attest to that. The second that so I was Um, my relationship with God, whenever I started on staff at a church, was still massively growing. I obviously I knew who God was. I love to worship Him. I love to spend time in His presence. When it came to understanding the will of God, and understanding the desires of God's heart, that is what took a while for me to fully comprehend, and I still don't have that fully comprehend. I mean, that we won't, right? Um, but your relationship with God is constantly growing. But for me, at that time, I immediately had a platform. I mean, mind you, I was 18, but whatever. Um, right there, I knew from that moment I have to be careful with what I share. Um, And so you begin to share with people that are on your level, essentially. That I'm not saying there's levels in churches, but I'm saying in terms of the public eye, um, I'm gonna go share with Wendy or Steven or Cheryl, right? Someone who understands, so that whenever I share with a potential congregation member, they could view the entire worship experience completely differently because of something that I'm struggling with, or they
Mhm.
could view the youth ministry completely different because of something that I'm struggling with. Right? They're like, "Oh, are they teaching that to my kids?" I don't know. I'm just giving examples, but that is really important. That's another thing for me. Be very careful with who I open up to and who my accountability partner is. And I think even you is the same thing, right?
Mhm.
You're super active here. You're Chris's son, therefore you're in the spotlight a lot, right?
Yes.
And you put yourself in the spotlight all the time.
Yeah.
And so people view you as that's Carson. I know I can go to him. I know that I can trust him. I trust the words that he says. Um, so you also have to be careful
Mhm.
who you talk to as well. It's all about being wise who we talk to. I think when I'm talking to those people or the staff, or I'm finding a new accountability partner, I think the approach should always be starting small. Like, hey, I've been struggling with this. Can I trust you to pray with me and to check in with me over a period of time to ensure that I go through it? I might even move the hey, I've been struggling with this to the end and just say, hey, I would like to share something with you. Can I trust you? Can you check in on me? Can we be accountability partners? That might be how I approach it to begin with,
Mhm.
just to ensure that I'm not going to waste my breath. Right. And they're like, I don't know. Most people I don't think are going to say no, but you also, like we said, be careful who you just go and talk to. But I would even ask that question first, like, "Hey, can I trust you? And can you check in with me on a regular basis? Okay, here's what I'm struggling with." But start small. Don't be like, blah 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 blah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just throw it all at them at one time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Don't as what people say, don't trauma dump
Right.
on
Right.
people as whatever it is, that
Right.
they say. But yeah, I mean like open up about, like certain stuff a little bit, here and there, and like and again, it's gonna grow over time.
Right.
And if you guys are, wondering at all, we talk about this all the time that, we're not perfect. We go through a lot of stuff,
Right.
and we were talking about it this morning a little bit. And just so you guys know, I mean, like I've struggled with this too
Mhm.
about the whole accountability thing. And like
Right.
even though we're not like official
Mhm.
accountability partner kind of things,
Right.
like we do open up to each other about a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
I think we've started
And
small. I think we've
we
started
did.
small.
Hmm.
And we're slowly, as we talk more and as we meet and as we hang out more, we seem to be building more up
Yeah.
um over time. So like it's just a natural progression. You
Hmm.
begin to it also builds a friendship. I think when I first got here, there were some difficult situations in the church, and that's one of the things we first talked about.
Yeah.
And so we talked about our takes on, some things and just talked about what that looked like with each other. And then we began to talk about other things and more ministry related things and more friendship related things and more religion related things. And it just began to like build this process. So accountability builds strength in a relationship and in a friendship. Um, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, I was gonna say that actually so part of that too is actually why it made it so like easy for us to become like friends and accountability
Mm-hmm.
partners kind of
Right.
is that like we're both I'll say we're both technically kind of outsiders
Mm-hmm.
in this church
Hmm.
that like I mean I just moved here not even 2 years ago now.
Right. I've been here for
Um
11 months now.
exactly.
So
So like
like,
we're both like somewhat newer to the
right.
church, and so like we both have more, a little bit outside perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
We both came in from different,
Very different
yeah, very
environments.
different environments,
Right.
worlds, and we're both trying to figure out how we fit into, the
Mm-hmm.
church here and stuff like that. And so I don't know, it's different, because we can relate on
Right.
being outside of,
Mm-hmm.
the people that have been here for, their whole entire lives,
Right.
20, 30 years, whatever it is.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know really what else to say that other than like, you'll relate to people,
Mm-hmm.
a lot in different ways. And sometimes, someone might be a little bit more helpful on a
Mm-hmm.
certain subject than another person,
Right.
and that's okay.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even when I got here, like I said, in the less than 2 years, I've even struggled with, having an accountability partner, somebody that I
Right.
can go to. And part of that's just been my own fault of not
Sure.
trying to find somebody, that I've just been so busy that I'm like, I can't find an accountability partner right
Sure.
now.
Right.
I was like, this isn't like, this is crucial for my life right now, but I just can't. like, but yeah, no, I mean, that's really about it. I
Right.
mean, help carry each other's burdens,
Right.
like that's a churchy thing, but
Mhm.
I mean, it's just true.
It is. It is. Yep, be there for your peoples. I think in conclusion, there's 2 questions that I think you should ask yourself when moving forward with what accountability looks like, what opening up to somebody looks like. And A, it's who can I open up to? So ask yourself that question. Pray about that question because often God will hand you an accountability partner because He says, "Hey, he struggled with this, and you're struggling with this, and he already been through it. Therefore, he knows how to get through it. So he's going to be a really good accountability partner for you." Or she's been through this, and you're going through this now, right? God might supply you an accountability partner as well. So pray about it. Ask yourself that question: who can I open up to? And then second, who can I help carry a burden for? I think in your friend group, right? If you know that friends trust you, be like, hey man, is there anything that I can pray with you about? Is there anything that we can talk about? Do you need assistance in anything? Right? And be that person because some people won't feel comfortable coming to you. So you might have to go to them if you know um like I don't know. It can just be a friend. Be like, hey, is there anything going on? How can I help you?
Yeah.
How can I help you?
How can I help you?
But yeah, who can I help carry a burden for?
Hmm.
Pray about those 2 questions. Pray about those 2 questions.
Yeah.
Um, and see what God tells you, see what God gives you, and see the natural progression that is accountability.
Hmm.
Because you ain't gonna walk into it straight up and just go, boom, this person holds me accountable. I mean, it might, but probably not. It's more of a
It's very rare.
yeah, it's more of a step by step kind of basis thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Be a Chick-fil-A worker, you know.
my pleasure.
My pleasure.
That's so funny. My
Can you
pleasure.
be my accountability partner? My
Kind of bit.
pleasure.
That's how you get an accountability
Yeah.
partner real fast.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A
Go to Chick-fil-A
drive-through.
together. Just go to Chick-fil-A together.
Right,
That's how
right.
you get your accountability partner.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
do it through the drive-through though, so it's faster, right? You don't want to
Hmm.
go inside and talk to somebody. Just be like, "Hey, can you be my accountability partner?" My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. Do not, I'll also give this advice. If you are um like somebody that's young, I mean, I sadly I gotta say this to adults too, but if you are in high school or middle school,
Mhm.
um, and you see somebody that you like, do not approach them to be like, "Can you be my accountability partner?" as a
Oh,
step in the door for your crush, you know?
absolutely not.
Do not use do not that is not Christian Riz, all right?
Christian risk.
That is not the way to go about
Hey,
it.
baby, wanna be my accountability
Yeah,
partner?
yeah, do not be like, "Hey, you wanna be my accountability
Wait, wait, wait,
partner?"
wait, 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 wait.
Do not try and slide from accountability partner to, "Yeah, get the glasses.
Hey,
I gotta
baby,
get the
wanna be
glasses."
my accountability partner?
Yeah, right? Like, hold on, I gotta get mine on too now. Alright. You wanna play the guy or the girl? No, I'm just kidding. Don't be
No,
like, "Hey, yo, you wanna be my accountability partner?"
sure, I'd love
Oh,
to.
yeah? "Hey, I'm struggling with something. You want to pray for me? Can you lay your hands on me?" Don't do that.
Oh my
Don't do
gosh.
that. That's not
Carson
okay.
just like a whole new level over here.
It's not okay.
Oh my
I've seen
gosh.
it. I've seen it.
No way.
Yes. Oh, I'm not even
Oh
joking.
my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I'm what? I'm 22, but I mean, I've served in youth ministry long
Right.
enough that you see stuff. And it's like,
Bro, that's so
that'll be my advice.
oh my
Do
gosh.
not try to, I don't know, if you're trying to start a romantic relationship with somebody, or like you're trying to approach your crush, do not start with, "Can I be your accountability partner?" That is going to crash and fail, and because you are going in with such a wrong intention.
Hey, what up, Shawty? You wanna be my
Hey, what up, girl?
accountability?
I I got some prayer requests.
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
like, hey, I'm struggling with.
Hey, pray with me, baby.
Yeah, pray with me.
Okay,
you know,
we're gonna move on, bro. We're finished with this.
It's okay. We can cut. It's fine. You know.
Oh my
But
gosh.
maybe this can be the bloopers.
I know, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Oh my
No,
Lord.
I was about to get into something else, but I mean, it would get cut anyways. But you know, like,
Oh my Lord.
it's just not. No, that's the worst approach you can take.
Closing.
Yeah, that's our closing.
That's our closing.
Hey, baby girl, what's your name?
Oh my gosh. Well, on that note.
Yeah.
On that note.
On that note.
Thanks for watching the Open Door Youth Podcast. We ended that in a very interesting way. I don't think either of us expected it to go there, but thank you for watching the Open Door Youth Podcast. Hopefully this has been insightful and beneficial to you, and this has helped you grow in your faith, because that's what we want to do.
Absolutely.
So, anyway.
Hopefully you enjoyed a few laughs along the way as well.
Dijon mustard out, homies.
Carsosaurus Rex telling you to have a good week. Later.
Oh my gosh. Peace out, homies.
Peace.
Bye.